Bartholomew, was in ag for years, but it's been a while. And I'm from Heartland.
All right. And I remember you, Charles. Yeah.
My name's Michelle Boslin. I'm a chair, I'm not a chair. I'm a representative from Wyndham 3. And I'm actually new to the committee. This is my second year.
Nice.
Richard Nelson, Orleans 1 up in Derby.
Yeah. Yeah, Richard. Richard, do you deal with, are you on the school board also?
I am.
With the Dwight Burnett?
Dwight and I are buddies.
Yes, you are. Dwight works with us very closely.
Yes, he does.
And
And when we buy our wood chips to heat the school with, they always give us the price per ton, but they sell them to us by the load.
yeah.
And Dwight goes, you can't do that.
No, Dwight gets, he talked to me about that.
Yeah.
And part of what I told him was, do you folks have a concern? If there's part of this is method of sale, but also if the buyer and seller are happy, if you're getting a good deal,
Our price is very reasonable
Yeah,
and we don't ever think we've been shorted.
yeah.
Same company's been supplying us forever.
Why don't we have you formally introduce yourself for the record?
Yes, thank you. My name is Mark Pocket. I work for the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets in the Weights and Measures section.
We are looking forward, most of us, to visiting your facility in Randolph next week.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to say most of us have not been there. I don't know, John, whether you ever were there. I think that at one point the committee, before my time anyway, might have stopped in, but we're planning to be in Randolph earlier in the morning to spend some time on the campus there, the State University campus,
Yeah.
and figured while we were in town, while we were up on the hill, we would stop in and see what the agency has there. So that's our plan for next week. And then it seemed to me that maybe having somebody come in and give us a bit of sort of I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, a little background if we get there. Would you like some of that? Yeah, absolutely. And I remember in the past being there where I think there was a joint group of House and Senate folks stopped by. We had a great talk,
Okay, might have
great
been.
chat. What we'll do, we expect to, I can't remember the date. I think it's on a Thursday-ish.
Next Thursday, yeah.
Next Thursday. Anyway, we'll bring you through the laboratory and we'll show you some of the artifacts, some of the standards that we have. Our staff will be there. We're doing that in conjunction with a forklift training class, which is mandatory. So our whole staff will be there. So hopefully you'll have a chance to get the feel of the number of our staff and some of the folks there. And I've got my counterpart, one of my metrologists down there who does the day-to-day and he's ready and he's very enthused to see you folks and we'll bring you down so you can have the visuals. I could have done some visuals here, but it's been very redundant. We'd have done a virtual tour and then you see a real tour. So why don't we just chat about the program a little bit? Mr.
If you could put up, if there's a way to attach the virtual to our committee page, I have an obligation that day and I won't be able to make it. And could someone from committee please give Dwight Burnett a hard time?
Representative Bartholomew.
Metrologist.
Yes. Metrologist. I went in, I gave my business card. I did a gas station inspection once and I left in my card and the state metrologist, and he started talking to me about the weather and he said, I don't think it's going to rain later this afternoon. I think they got the forecast wrong. And I was listening to the radio on the way back down and I said, I think you're right. And I was, and he kept asking me about that. And then I get in the vehicle and I realized there must be some misunderstanding. A metrologist is not a meteorologist. It's interesting. I go to meetings all over the country and the state meteorologist from Montana used to be a meteorologist. And so it's kind of interesting. They're both science-based. Metrology is the study of measurement. So if you're curious, if you can't sleep well some night and you've got your iPad there, you Google metrology and you'll be in store for a treat. And in a little while, you may be dozing off. But if you are really into on science space, it really is fascinating. I've been with the agency in the Weights and Measures Department for 37 years, as of this February. And to me, I find it fascinating and interesting. To me, a test weight, you have a test weight, there's a test weight and this and that. And to me, it's what that test weight symbolizes is, to me, it's static, but is dynamic at the same time. It's almost has a life of its own because of what it represents and what it does. And to me, the whole issue is fascinating, and the issue of metrology is fascinating too. So our laboratory serves, and if folks have questions, just interrupt me. But our laboratory serves as a resource for both the Weights and Measures Inspection Program, but also as a resource for the weighing and measuring industry in the state of Vermont, but also as a technical resource to other businesses, retail weighing and measuring, and to other weighing and measuring businesses in the Northeast, because we have people bringing artifacts for calibration from Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Massachusetts at times, based on the availability of their recognized certified calibration laboratories. So our little tiny, we have a little tiny program in the state of Vermont. We have 7 people, and that's not the metrology program. That's everything we do. And we do all those different type of things. So we maintain state standards that are traceable to what? And I was doing an inspection once, nice person, general store, and I'm putting the test weights on. And he looked at me and he argued with me a little bit. And he said, how do you know that your weights are accurate? It's a fair question. You're putting this on and then a 1 pound weight, it's reading 0.95. Well, how do you know my scale is wrong? How do I know it? So I went into the explanation and I got really excited and I kept talking and the more I talked, the more his eyes started going to the back of his head. And finally he said, I believe you. I'll fix the scale. Please leave. So this is a little bit what the program is. There's an incredible amount to maintaining traceability. You'll see some beautiful standards down there in the laboratory. Stainless steel, you have working standards, and the standards, you have field standards. The field standards are the stuff you can grab with your hands and get them all dirty. The working standards and the state standards, you use gloves and handlers, and you don't touch. Traceability to what standards? International standards is the SI. All of our standards are maintained to metric. It's called the SI standard. We follow ISO, the Organization for International Standardization, which is internationally followed for metrology, laboratory, and traceability. And ideally, now I'll tell you the way it used to be for traceability, not very long ago, that at one point in time, and the France did this in the late 1700s, they came up with a metric system and they came up with the golden kilogram weight. It was kept under lock and key in Paris, France. And all standards flowed from that one standard. So we have our federal partners in NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, that have no regulatory authority for any of the states, because weights and measures programs are all state programs and have the authority of the state, because it isn't something that comes under the federal guidelines. But they offer support to the states. And every few years, they would travel to Paris, France, with a briefcase under lock and key to Paris, France, and have their kilogram weight or weights recalibrated there in Paris, France, which is the location of the International Institute of Metrology. And it's internationally recognized. And they would go in and they have security guards and keys, and you bring your stuff in and they don't let anyone see this, and they do their calibrations. They have their standard, which they calibrate to working standards there, and then their working standards they use to check other people's standards there, because they only want that kilogram weight touched every once in a while. That's how it used to be done, and our recognition and traceability is still provided by that kilogram weight, because the system has been in place for so long. However, they have redefined the kilogram, partly to my great chagrin, because I'm a traditionalist and very old-fashioned, but they have redefined it to using a different methodology than that 1 kilogram weight, because they found, doing repeated testing, that even that 1 kilogram weight is changing weight over time. And that's what you don't want to have happen. You want it to stay the same thing. So they come out with a different way of establishing the weight using what they call a Watt balance. This was just done 3 years ago, 4 years ago. You can Google it, the new traceability standardization for the kilogram, And they will now use a Watt balance, although everything is in place with traceability to that 1 kilogram still. But over time, this will change. So over time,
What is that term? Walk?
a Watt balance, WATT.
WATT, okay.
And some of this technology, I hate to say it, is, the old technology I understood very, very well. It's a little over my head.
It's easy to grasp if something physical.
Yes.
Looks like a
Yes.
small block. Yeah.
Yes.
Why does that relate to like electrical watt, or is it totally different?
The Watt balance incorporates some electricity and it's able to see what the mass, stainless steel or copper will have a different density. And so it can figure out the density and the mass plus the weight, and it combines everything and gives a value to it. Yeah, it's a different type of balance, a different type of, yeah. Yes, Mr.
Thank you. You listen to the podcast from Podcast Full of Posies?
No, I get that asked frequently. It's a different
Colleagues
spelling,
are drawn.
different spelling,
Yeah.
different family.
Okay, so go to a gas station.
Yes.
Swipe the card,
Yep.
get your thing, you wait, and finally goes, turns on.
Yep.
You squeeze the handle. Shit starts flinting, nothing coming out, then it starts coming out.
If that's in your gas tank, gas is coming out. It's got a solenoid. That solenoid's going to slowly kick in. So you're going to depress that. You're going to see that, a couple pennies, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it really kicks in. That solenoid, the valve is releasing, gas is coming through your nozzle. And then that solenoid's going to kick in. It's going to kick in really hard and you're going to feel it.
So were we donating 6, 7, 8 cents for every?
No, because gas is coming out of that nozzle. Yep. And we get complaints on that periodically.
No, I'm not complaining, I was just querying.
Probably was one of them.
These are great questions. I like.
No, because I never think to ask Dwight, and I see him a couple times a month. They also are responsible for standardizing our bulk tanks. Or in our situation, our piper, which measures the amount of milk we put into the trucks. And to make sure that the fertilizer we're buying and the grain we're buying is all accurate.
Is weights and measures a division or a department?
It is a section in the Division of Consumer Protection Food Safety.
Okay. And we're talking about petroleum products here, and I'm remembering you don't just deal with food or agricultural products, but also anything that's involves.
Anytime a weight or measure is involved, it can loop us in, regardless of the product. Feed, seed, fertilizer, all of those things. Fuel. Yeah.
Representative Bartholomew?
So you touched on the weights and the kilograms, so there must be a conversion that's accepted for conversion from kilogram to pounds.
Oh, absolutely. And we convert everything.
And maybe you're going to get to this, how do you do a volume?
Yeah, so I can move on to volume a little bit and we'll show you the equipment. We calibrate different sizes of volumetric measurements that are used by our inspection program, but also by industry out there. And it was mentioned the gas pumps. The typical test, or what we do in a gas station inspection, we'll pull in unannounced. We have laboratory calibrated test measures. 5 gallon with the sight glass. You can see how much fluid comes out based on the cubic inches, 231 cubic inches to the gallon, 1,155 cubic inches in a 5 gallon draft. And we'll pump 5 gallons into that. It says 5 gallons on the pump, and you can see that sight glass to see how accurate that pump is. And what we do is we will, in the laboratory, we have our main beautiful stainless steel 5 gallon standard, and we will test and adjust when necessary those field standards that are used in the field for that testing. And also an expansion down in Randolph is when we were involved in scoping out the laboratory space. We're in Waterbury and then we're flooded out. And then we were at a temporary spot in Berlin. It was going to be very short-lived and we did 7.5 years there and made a renovated warehouse work. We closed everything in and made environmental controls in the rooms. It was very interesting what we did. And now we have the place in Randolph. When we scoped out the space, we have room in the garage to do some larger items that we never were able to do. So we do 100-gallon provers, stainless steel provers. And those are used primarily for oil trucks, oil truck meters. And so when we check an oil truck, instead of gas pump is a 5-gallon pump. When we do an oil truck, it's 100 gallons off of that oil truck through that meter into the prover, check the ticket, check the measure, check the price. Then we pump it back into the truck. And so the volume is done in a similar way. It's done with different sizes. We have a 25-gallon stainless steel drop, so it allows us to check larger capacity items. We can do 25 or 50, 75 or 100-gallon provers. Our program has, I think, 4 100-gallon provers now, which the staff employ.
Curious, so, but we had the international standard with the under lock and key in Paris. Was there something similar for volume? There must have been, I mean, there must be
Yeah.
temperature and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they have everything is metric. Even those countries that do have a DuPont standard inch pound, and there's the United States is one that accepts that. Although if you look at the labeling, everything is it's dual declaration. You have metric on almost everything. You have the both things declared. But in volume, the volume is basically the liter is based on the weight of so many kilograms or a kilogram. It gets a little complicated. How much, it's not a volumetric thing like the weight. It's how much water is a kilogram, I believe. It's done by that. So the liters, like how much, like 2.22 pounds of water, and it would have to be, sterile water. Now that's your liter. So that is based on weight too. But once you establish that, then your traceability with our laboratories are done not by the weight, although you can do that. It's based on those volume comparisons. But when we had a great case in a dairy distributor, a large one, very, very large one. We had a complaint on short measure. And when we go in and do that inspection, we do that based on weight. So it's all traceable really to that kilogram and weight. So we bring in our scales and our weights and check our scale periodically, and we have a flask and we put in X amount and we decide the density of that milk and go on and to do the inspection. It's very complicated.
You inspect grocery store scales annually on a surprise basis? Is that?
Yes, we do. The law states within 12 months. So we do it, we define it as during the calendar year. So we try, and we do our best, and I'll be very transparent. Sometimes we don't get to everything within 12 months. And that's based on staffing and other issues and workload and complaints and everything else. But we try to get in there and do all of our devices within a 12-month period of time. Grocery stores, unannounced, we check the scales. We do package weighing. If it's labeled 1 pound or 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds or it's done metric and it has the conversion into pounds, then we check that. And then we have our scale, we have our test traceable weights that are checked in our laboratory, and we check our scale. It's imperative that that the process is followed. So you're not accusing people of short weighting people if they're not doing it. And we have national standards. We have books like this that have a process for dried goods or volume goods or liquid goods on how to do this. And we have a computer program that helps us when that walks us through that. So we'll go in and we'll do package weighing, and then we'll look at some of the labels, and we'll look at some of the labeling. And a big thing we do in the stores is the price verification and scanner inspections also.
You encounter, just in the same way that you were talking about that standard sort of degraded over time, even the one in France, just do everyday scales and grocery stores tend to go out of compliance enough that you, by being there, are able just to help bring them back in, even if there's no punishment or?
Yeah, and we issue, our little section issues lots of fines and penalties, but we issue very few fines and penalties over devices. You know, if those are used and used heavily, they can float out of calibration. And this is just maintenance. Truck scales.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Truck scales, you got these big trucks. I've still got my CDL license. For 20 years, I did every truck scale in the state of Vermont and hopper scales. And, you stand by and walk. The trucks are never overweight. And they're really, they really can damage those scales and really shake them up really hard. They need regular maintenance. Our inspection program makes sure we get there once a year. And that they're accurate and correct. If they're not, we issue a rejection order. They get the service companies in, they adjust them, they fix them. We get the notification and or go back if it's really bad to make sure those are accurate and correct. Gas pumps, I think of a gas pump as like an old car engine, where it's got a piston, it's got a measuring chamber, and that chamber fills, and then the piston pushes it out repeatedly over time. It'll wear. Electronic scales, they can float based on power surges. So there's a lot of different things. Regular maintenance. If there's no sign of intentionality or tampering with there's calibration switches on there, lead and wire seals, service companies embossed initials on there. If there's no indication of tampering, those are simply rejected and given X amount of days to be adjusted. If they are way out and damaging to the public, they're closed on the use.
So how do you calibrate Northeast Agriculture in Lindenville had a big, platform scales that drive trucks on how do you check the weights of those? I mean, how do you get a truck there with a predetermined weight to check it, or do you bring in 500-600 pounds on a truck and then put it there?
So what we have, and we upgraded, I had my CDL and we upgraded 5 years ago to a state-of-the-art scale truck. And this scale truck holds 20 1,000-pound certified weights and a 5,000-pound weight cart, which gives us 25,000 pounds of traceable certified weight that we drive to the truck scales. And I don't know if it's still on the scale truck. It's at the lab. I think it's put away for the season, which is unfortunate because I'd love to show it to you. But we can show you. I can have Scott explain how we would check a weight cart, a 5,000-pound weight cart. We do that with a load cell and a hanging scale. We hang it in the laboratory there in the garage. We have a huge I-beam, 12,000-pound capacity I-beam, and we hang that. Anyway, we make sure that that 25,000 pounds is accurate and correct. There's a way to test those. Underneath the scale, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Typical have 4 different independent weighing elements. And so if you park here, those primarily 2 of those elements on a short wheelbase truck are going to take that weight, and then it funnels everything into your indicator. If you got a long truck, then all 4 of those are going to add the weights up and funnel it through. And if you stand on the very, very end or with a weight cart, then it's going to just take that one weight and funnel it through and give you your total weight. So that weight cart can check all of those individual weighing segments of 25,000 pounds, make sure they're accurate and correct. If one of them are off, the service person can adjust that right on to where it needs to be. And then we will check the overall weight to make sure it's clear within 25,000 pounds, which on a 100,000-pound truck scale, I don't like, because there's a big range that you don't catch. So what we do is we use the gross weight of our vehicle once we've proved it to 25,000 pounds. We drive our truck on, which is another 35,000 pounds. And then we have our 25,000 pound accurate block. We drive it on so we can use a dead weight to have a new reference point and get the weight up to at least 50% of the used capacity.
And do you worry about the difference in fuel level in your tanks? I mean,
That with our weight cart has a gas tank this big and it's got a fuel gauge. If it goes down to there, we have counterweights, tiny little counterweights that will bring that in because the tolerance on a 5,000 pound weight cart is about a tenth of a pound. And we will do that. The weight of the scale truck is irrelevant because once we've proved it to 25, we're starting at a strain load test weight of 35,000 pounds. So the weight is what the weight is. But it's that 25,000 pound traceable weight that's going to give us the accuracy of the process of what we're doing.
okay, makes sense.
Do you, go ahead, John.
Going back to the grocery stores, how many different scales, when you walk into a big store, huh? And I'm thinking deli's got one, the meat department would have them. Every checkout, including all those have, you check all of those?
Yeah, anything that's direct sale. So in other words, the customer is present. Our program and the law doesn't define scales that are used for processing or packaging or, those that are in factories don't come under our purview. The factories, if they're in factories and they're using the production of or the packaging of, our law impacts devices that are used where the customer is present, or in truck scales, you can't be there where they weigh it, but you should be able to. So we do that. We define that one as a direct sale, even though you're not there. But gas stations, the customer is there. At the deli, the customer is there. At the home delivery of fuel oil, the customer has the right to be there and to witness the delivery and to look at that meter. And so direct sale to the customer. So prepackaged factory scales are those that are used in the meat room. We sometimes don't do. Sometimes we do them as a courtesy, but we will weigh the packages. Because even if the scale is totally accurate, correct, that doesn't mean they're using it the way it needs to be used. We have packaging material. You have a tenth of a pound packaging material. They put a $12 a pound lobster in, and they don't account for that packaging material, and they're charging you $12 a pound for packaging material. And it's against the law to do that. It's against you can't grow gross weight. They can't grow, so it's got to be a net weight.
So for meats, you're doing the weight after it's packaged. You don't check the scale that they're using to pack it.
Often not. But we'll check the packages, which actually it's a more definitive check of what they're doing with their business. And I'll add the grocery stores, scanner inspections. We do a lot of those. The inspectors are in the stores now. They're very active and busy. 8 weeks ago, I think, 9 weeks ago, 10, there was a press release from the Attorney General's office on Walgreens. And that was our case. That was all of our work that we worked with them on and handed that over to them.
There was an issue of scanning an item and the price that ended up being charged was differing from.
Yes, overcharges. So if the shelf label said $3.99 and you go to the front and it's $4.99, then that's not good.
But it falls under your purview.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
You do fuel oil, heating oil,
We
and propane. And what about something like wood pellets?
So we do the trucks that are used for home delivery for oil. And I think we have around 400 trucks we check a year. And we do the propane delivery trucks. I should say meters, we don't inspect the trucks. If the trucks if they don't have an inspection sticker on the truck, it's not our purview. It's that meter. We want our sticker on the meter. And then the delivery trucks for the wood pellets, yes, also. And the propane and oil are done volumetrically, and the pellets are done by weight. And the scales are on those wood pellet trucks. And so we will go with the service company that has their weights. They usually can hang off one corner of each truck, 4,000 pounds of certified weight. We do a strain load test, 4,000 pounds of certified weight. We take the weights off. We have them drop 4,000 pounds of pellets in, and then we hang the weights again for 8,000 pounds. Then we take the weights off, another 4,000 pounds of pellets, and then we hang the weights up. So we can check the scale to capacity.
Wood for heating, we don't.
Well, we do consumer complaints for that. It's that is very challenging.
And that used to be a town office position. Yeah, what do they call it?
They had
Like you said, the fence viewer.
the fence viewer and the wood checker,
Or something, measures.
yeah, the measure of wood. Yeah. We get complaints on wood. It's very problematic. We do the best we can. By law, there has to be 128 cubic feet in a cord when the wood is stacked and stowed appropriately. So it has to be stacked. And we get complaints. I wish we could do a better job with it, but it's hard. We're not there for the delivery. And often the customer doesn't ask for a receipt. And often the customer pays in cash. And sometimes the person doesn't really even know who this person is. They saw it on Craigslist and they had them deliver and they dumped the load and they said, oh, it's 3/4 firewood and it's very expensive now, $1,000. And they pay $1,000 in cash. And then they start stacking the firewood and they're very, very upset. And then they call us and and we do our best. Sometimes we can get a refund. Sometimes we can't. We've had people who I think they kind of, I think they needed their firewood stacked. So they gave us the call because it wasn't stacked. The inspectors, showed up and said, it has to be stacked. Well, we usually stack it over there. Maybe you could. No, we don't do that. And I had one party, I remember this from Stowe, and she called me. And there's another issue, and we had a cord of wood delivered, and we stacked it, and we took a picture of it, and we looked at it, and we don't believe that we had a cord of wood. So I said, okay, we can send an inspector there to look, and we'll do a measurement. And I said, we weren't there for the delivery or this or that, but once we have a certified measurement, then sometimes if you share this with the dealer, they'll make up or give you the refund. I said, oh, well, we've burned most of the wood.
You gotta wait for the ash.
And I said, I can't, there's nothing I can really do. And she was very angry and upset. And she said, well, we built a rack that holds exactly 1 cord of wood. And if you show up to our place, or I can send you a picture of exactly the point where that wood was and we stacked it, and that our cord, and I'm sorry, we can't do that. And she really was not happy that we could not do that. So it's a challenging thing. I've had cases where, personalities got involved, and I was at one of our agency meetings and I was on the phone back and forth, and the wood dealer called me and there was a complaint, and he was there at the place and he was trying to do a measurement, and we had measured and found a discrepancy, and he went to measure himself and to see stuff that was going on, and he just showed up, and they got on the phone and they called the police, and the state police were coming, and he was on the phone with me. He goes, I'm trying to settle this, and they called the police, and they're driving in now as I speak. And I just say, go and tell them you're chatting with me, and tell them you're here to make everything right, and that it's all good, and you're not causing it. And so we get into some of those issues with fire.
I didn't expect such a robust answer to that. I thought you would say, no, don't do that. I do wonder about, back to trucking,
Yes.
truck scales.
Yeah, yeah.
When it's law enforcement related, are you involved with those, which never seem to be used anymore? And
No, they use them.
Yeah, the one in Bennington which is on the state highway there, has been closed for a decade, I think.
A lot of them, the ones on the side of the road, a lot of them have been used. Excuse me, closed. They have some scales. They're more portable on trailers that they use. But the thing that they use a lot, and our Inspector Dwight Burnett is a lead on this. The DMV has what they call portable wheel load weighers. And the DMV inspectors, road enforcement folks all have a set of these. They carry them in their vehicles. They're very thin. They're about this tall and very thin, and they slide them in. They each carry around 8, and they're designed to put in front of a truck tire and have the truck go forward and weigh on that. They have a little dial. They have a capacity of 20,000 pounds. So they would put those in front of every tire and then add the weights up. And we certify those, and Weights and Measures has some authority over devices used in law enforcement. And we have a really great program. In December, Dwight met, and they did 220 of those scales.
Were they accurate?
Yeah, most of them, I'm sorry. Most of them are accurate. Most of them are accurate, but again, with all devices, they can float off. And the DMV inspectors themselves have gone to training and classes. We work cooperatively with them, and they have the capability to make adjustments and do repairs on those that float out of tolerance. Once in a while, one will just break, and we just, it can't be repaired or it can't be adjusted enough. So we advise them to throw it out.
When those big truck scales, whether the platform or whatever, it's when the truck pulls onto them and slam their brakes on. It really, really harsh on them.
On the scale.
Yes.
It is. It is very, very, very hard on. I was called into court many, many years ago. Been here 25 years ago. It was down close to the Connecticut River gravel pit that was at the bottom of a hill. And it was an old mechanical truck scale and in very good condition, but someone came off of that hill and very, very heavy truck, a 10-wheel truck, and they came onto that scale. And so they told me, I don't know what happened, told me they came onto that scale way too fast and they hit the brakes. And from what I heard, the description that the scale went, they're designed to float a little bit, and you creep onto them and they float. And that hit the wall, kabang, that way. It hit the wall, kabang, that way. It hit the wall, kabang, that way. And then it did this, and then everything collapsed in the pit. The scale, the truck, and everything collapsed in a 6-foot scale pit.
Ouch.
And that ended up in, I don't know, back then, 25 years ago, a $500,000 lawsuit. And we had the pleasure of just being there, I don't know, 8 weeks before the accident, and approved it. And it had our sticker on it. It was very interesting. I saw pictures of this truck in the pit and broken pieces everywhere. It was fascinating to see. So yeah, there's a lot of wear and tear on a truck scale.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
My mind keeps going back to this gold kilogram.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, how in the world could it change if it's sealed? It's not going to absorb water or anything. If it doesn't have fingerprints on it or dust, how did it change?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right off the bat how I can understand some weights changing. We have standards that, in our laboratory with environmental controls and this and that, check standards. And, we monitor I don't want to bore you, but we have control charts. We run check standards through, we have our standards, that really good traceability. We run our check standards through and we monitor their condition and we run these charts with data points and then you can see, how that weight is going. That weight's going like this, that's way, and all of a sudden it starts floating off and it starts floating off. So we had one in our lab that did that and they can do that once in a while. The one that was in Paris, France, with the environmental controls and everything else, it took a long time for that to happen. But you're talking when that was established, if you're talking a century, the metal itself ages over time and there can be some I understand a little bit of loss of weight. You're talking the amount that they check for is unbelievably precise. And they had multiple labs. I believe it was Tromner out of New Jersey that's done our weights before, that they checked some of their standards coming out of there and monitored the change. And they picked up, it is so tiny.
And I shouldn't be speculating out loud on this, but whether it's atomic, like how some,
Atomic level stuff.
yeah,
You could get down to that just some of the changes in that.
yeah.
We see a change without even being used on a brand new 25-pound cast iron weight. Hasn't been used, they're pretty new or whatever. And that cast iron, those new ones will change some weight over time. The cast is just, but cast iron is not held in in a laboratory or made out of the stuff that this isn't, but that type of material will.
Guessing at the atomic level, then there are electrons and protons and metal changes and electrons don't weigh much, but centuries.
Yeah.
Go out. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Weird.
So is there a lot of excitement, and I love old stuff, when you get the chance to work on an old Fairbanks scales?
Well, not with my staff. I'm old school. I enjoyed working on the old stuff. And if you look at the history of the state of Vermont with Fairbanks scales and house scales, you can weigh, the Vermont at one point in time was the center of the weighing industry for the world. And Fairbanks and St. Johnsbury came up with the method of how to create a platform scale, and that design stayed in place for 150 years. And it's a beautiful thing to see, to go under a truck scale, but your little portable platform scale, the old ones, the mechanical ones, you pop one of those up and you take a look, and then you go under a truck scale, it's all the same. The designs is the same, the theory behind it is the same, it's all done on levers and conversions, because if if on the truck scale, everything is weighed and it all feeds into this big lever that feeds into that arm, and it's all based on ratios, based on certain things. And there was an old service person, Mr. Bernard Willie in St. Johnsbury, who started his business in 1941, and he worked until he was almost 90 with his son took it over, but he had the capability to get a truck scale and get your arm that feeds into that beam. And he could put, ratios, hang a 10-pound weight, for example, on that beam and correctly calibrate that truck scale using a 10-pound weight to 10,000 pounds, all based on ratios. And there was a science, but there was an art to it that's now lost. To me, scales used to have a personality. I could tell you what its characteristics were, how it was going to operate. It's almost like it had its own character to it. And the service companies could adjust it almost. It was an art form to do it. The new guys, they just want to put a weight on it and read the number. And they want that for everything.
Young people today, this has been fascinating, Mark.
It really is. I am
Glad we were-
sad I'm missing that day.
Yeah, well,
Well, but if he sends us the walkthrough to our webpage, I will look
maybe
at it.
we'll have somebody with a phone taking some
Maybe we're-
video there. Yeah.
But please, someone has gotta give, Dwight Bird had a hard time or say, poor Dwight, you have to sit with Nelson in committees. He's as bad in your committee as he is in ours.
We'll commiserate a little.
We will, yeah, we'll be sure to do that.
He's a great guy.
And Chair, would it be okay if I just shared a couple closing comments, if that would be okay? And we may be back in front of you folks testifying, look forward to it if we can be helpful or answer any questions. But we talked about a lot of older technology and standard traditional things that we've done, but you're really on our list that we're doing a lot of work on are the electric vehicle service equipment for electric cars. And so they were really involved in that. And my counterpart, who I'm so pleased with his performance. We were in Alabama at the interim NCWM meeting last week, Tuesday, and he gave a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation in front of 200 people from all over the country, regulators, on what the state of Vermont is doing. And the state of Vermont is very well known now nationally for our efforts with this. It's difficult, confusing, challenging, frustrating, but we're making headway. And I'm so proud of those folks. I wanted to mention that, and cannabis scales. The cannabis industry, again, so proud of my staff. A different type of commodity, incredibly high priced. I ran the numbers, roughly $5,000 a pound. And we advised, it took us a while. We're a little slow out of the gate, but it took us a while. And we've been working with the cannabis board a little bit and advising them on the proper devices, scales to get. And again, where it's a direct sales scale to make sure the customers are protected. And we've done some package weighing, which is incredibly challenging on weights that are so fine. We had a lot of debates.
Believe it, as much as the product.
Oh, yes. So you have to be, I've had some debates with some of the folks and internally and a couple around the country. I can't believe, 37 years ago, I would even discuss this, but if you have a joint and they're selling it by weight, does the paper, is it cannabis or is it not cannabis? Is it part of the product or is it tear weight? Is it packaging weight? $5,000 a pound. And I had a gentleman of the cannabis industry call me and he said, I know what I'm going to buy for scale. I'm so happy. And where are you getting it on? It's on Amazon and it's this and that. And it's a dual shipping scale and bathroom scale. And I said, I don't usually raise my voice or yell, but I think I raised my voice. I yelled a little. I just said, no. I was so, from my point of view, metrology, no. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, just think $5,000 a pound. This is your cash register. What's your division size? If you're in division, you have an ounce and it's 0.06 pounds, it'll round internally. A scale will round up or down. I said it can be accurate, but the rounding alone, you've got dollars and dollars and dollars of, I don't know.
Well, it's like losing a penny. You say, well, big deal, it's a penny. Well, if you do 12,000 transactions, you lose 2 cents on every one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And the last thing I was just going to mention, the unit pricing update, that's been a big initiative we've been working on. You folks may want us to answer some questions on that.
Great, yeah, so unit pricing and then EV measuring equipment, is that, or?
It's called EVSC, electric vehicle supply equipment.
Supply equipment.
We can see that the EV stuff.
Oh, yes, we have the testers down there. Absolutely. Yeah, if there's anything you would like to see, and we forget you prompt us, please. Okay.
We will prompt you if we don't see it, yes. Good, thank you.
And thank you so much for the chance to come and chat. It's very enjoyable. I always like talking about our program.
We'll look forward
Thanks for
to
coming.
seeing you again on Thursday then.
Thank you so much.
So just the last thing before we go, and we'll stay on, so back to chart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna suggest that we green light everything. Although maybe yellow light the MOU one at the bottom.
Yeah,
Just to make clear that we did look at these, we didn't just say,
Yeah,
we don't have time on this, but I think that that's probably appropriate.
Yep.
And I think everything else here, honestly, feels like we should continue this.
yeah. And as we get them, we can say, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
we don't need
Yeah.
that as often or.
I
Good.
have some questions about the chart, but.
Yeah, we'll have to,
See you guys.
Bradley,
See ya.
take care.
Turn this
We'll have
off.
Bradley come in and explain that again. Or maybe Tucker. We can go off